This is part 10 of the Connoisseur build, J15 build. One thing the instruction says, where I've been following it, is to fit the steps. So I've made one up. These just bend up and they're soldered to the, I don't know what you call it, the step stretcher I suppose. And then this this goes behind the valance. I've made one up. There's one still to make up. I'm not going to fit them now because I've done this a lot, and I know if you put them on now and you're still going to work on the locomotive, you risk bending the steps up. You like to go and find the steps bent over in half. These are one of the last things I'm going to fit. So I'm going to make these up, put them in the box and put them on virtually last. What I'm turning my attention to now is I haven't built the chassis. I know the chassis works. I super glued it together just to make sure it works. The spacers, that is. So I actually want to start building the chassis, bringing everything together. So the first thing to do is to make up the coupling rods. These are 3-part laminates. They're in 2 sections. So they're articulated on the middle driver. It goes through the middle driver crank pin. And so in 3 sections. There's a dumb, that's where it should be, that is where it should, on the real loco, be coupled, be jointed. That's a dummy joint. So I've done one. My method is to do it like this. Get the 3 sides. I'll do one side first. So I've got this one. And then I've got a shorter one in the middle. So this hasn't got an end on it. So what I do, I've got a needle file, thread it on there. You're going to make sure you put these on the right way, so double check it. So that's the wrong one. And also make sure they go the right way up so the oil boxes are at the top. Easy to get it wrong. So I put them like that. What I would do is I'd make sure, this is to make sure they're all lined up. Make sure they're lined up that end. And then I'll grab it with a pair of pliers. Then I'll get my iron. This is not on, okay? And then I'll put some flux on it with a brush, phosphoric acid flux. But this is 60-40. Just put some on there and run along the top. Because there's flux on it, it'll all flow down. Just spot solder it there, move up, do a few spot solders, check it's all right, and then flood it with solder. Then I'll file off all these little nibs, then I'll reflux it, then I'll give it a final file back. So that's what I'm gonna do now. So just hold this in here. These are spot soldered. Just hold these. Winsor & Newton number 7 brush. I kid you not. No, it's not. It's a cheap, nasty thing. Cost me about $1 from Bunnings. Iron. Bit of solder. And what will happen is it will be drawn down between the laminates. Probably notice anyway, but someone going to watch who's never done anything like this. Oh. Rule 1. Don't pick it up and go, Jesus! That's alright. loads of flux. The other thing I've learned is I try and clean up my desk every night. Oh, listen to that. This stuff is what's it called? It's just a rust converter. It's basically phosphoric acid, and I worked out. A mate of mine is a chemist. I dilute it down about 1 part to 2 parts water, and it works. Tell you what, you get 500 mils for $13. So you work that out. That makes 1.5 litres of flux. That's a lot of flux. So I've done that. So all I've got to do now, solder off, file off these nibs, give it another solder, clean it all up, bingo. I'm hoping my video is a lot better because I made up a little tripod thing, but I've got to turn the camera off. Okay, so what I've decided to do is get the basic frames built now. There's 2 sets, obviously 2 frames. You notice one of them I've cut this out. The reason is, and there's nothing wrong with the frames, the way Connoisseur say to do it, but this has got 3 holes for the bearings. Little top hat bearings going there, there and there. But because it's rigid, what's called rigid, in theory they should all be identical in going through the centres. But what a lot of kit manufacturers do is the centre one, they actually, I'm going to show it a bit exaggerated, they raise it up a bit. So really, if your wheels were on the track, this middle wheel would not be touching the track, it'd be ever so slightly off the track. In fact, when I wheeled it up, it did that, and I've measured it all, and it is high. And the reason they do that is so that if you've got an even track, it doesn't sort of go on the centre wheel and go like a seesaw. That's why they do it. But what I want to do, and I'm going to drive the middle axle, by the way, so I'm going to leave these 2 fixed, and in the middle I'm going to put a Slater's cast horn block. Oh, sorry, one of these. And I've measured these out, and they will fit in there, like so. There's a little spring, and it can move up and down. So this will, the spring will keep it on the track, but also I'm going to have the weight of the motor pushing down, so it will be on the track all the time. Whether it adds to traction is not really the well, it's not so much. Well, it is part of the issue, but the more of a problem is that obviously you want as many pickups. If one's not touching the track, then you haven't got contact, you haven't got electrical pickup. So this will ensure I've got 6 wheels, hopefully, on the track at all times. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to solder up the spacers, loosely put the axles in, make sure they're all level. Sorry, no, I won't do that, sorry. I'll put all the spacers in, put tack solder one spacer the other side, make sure it's all level and straight, and then solder up. That's what I'm going to do. Well, I'm back again with a nice clean workbench. I clean up every night. So here is the story so far. There are 5 spacers on the chassis, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little one there, and that's got a captive nut on it, an 8BA, and that is for the tender loco coupling. 8 spacers, so you solder one side, all spacers on one side first, and then you offer up the other side, you tack solder, just make sure it's all straight, which I've done. Now, then what I did is I put in 2 sets of plain bearings. Then I've got a brass rod, a 3/16 brass rod, and then I lined them up with the lines on my cutting mat. Put them in. It's fairly long. It's probably about, I don't know, 8 inches long, something like that. And that way I could see if these were one way or the other. And then if they were a bit out, I just undid one of the tacks and just twisted it slightly. Make sure everything's virtually, you know, perpendicular. So once I've done that, I then soldered in. I put these jig axles in. These are aluminium, and then I soldered them in. That way, they're not twisted. None of the axles are the bearings are twisted, so they all run very, very, very freely. Now, getting back to what I did with this cutout, these are the Slater's cast horn guides and blocks. So, as you can see, it allows up and down movement. These haven't been soldered in yet. I then put a coupling rods on the end, because obviously the coupling rods, if these are the centres have got to be exact. The centres of the coupling rods have got to be exact with the centres of the axles. Otherwise, you're going to get a chassis that binds, and there's no way around that. So the next thing I've got to do, I'm going to do now. These are just got to square those up. Make sure that these are exactly square with the frames, and then solder them up. And I can pull off the. I'll just solder them from the inside. Run solder, fillet of solder around. Make sure it gets right underneath there. I'll pull all this off, and then what I'll do next is I'll put the wheels on and the crank pins on, and I should hopefully be able to just run it along a piece of track, and it should turn very, very easily. That's the next thing I do before I do anything else. This is a Connoisseur J15 chassis. I've built a basic chassis. It's fixed axles front and rear, mainly because I don't want to change the integrity of this chassis by modifying spacers. But what I did do, I didn't want to use the 1833 gearbox, the Machima one. I've got 2 of those. But also, I put Slater's cast horn blocks and guides in. The reason is because this actually set slightly higher, and Jim from Connoisseur actually tells you it is. I figured if I put this in, this wheel will be touching the rail all the time. I won't even have to put a spring in the top, because I've got the whole weight of the motor pushing down against the rail. No, it's not a springboard. I'll just put it there. The motor will actually, I'll have to make up some brackets, but the motor is going to go bolt upright in the gearbox, in the firebox. It does fit. Now this is a Canon 1833. It's a Shogun gearbox. Got this from Tower Models 4 years ago. I tested it today with the rods on, but it tended to bind. But when the motor wasn't out, it didn't bind. But when I put it in, it started to bind. I've opened up. It shouldn't, because I've set all the axles up properly with jig axles. So I'm running the motor in. Weird thing, these motors. I wouldn't have bought it if I'd have known. They don't come with a 3/16 axle. They come with something slightly under 3/16. So they must get a Slater's axle and turn it down. Luckily it's smaller, because I've got a mate with a lathe, so he and a 3/16 reamer, so we reamed out the pinion gear and the bearings, so to take a 3/16 axle. But what a dumb size. I could have put the other one in, but the thing is, if I want to change a motor, then I've got to take the bearings out and ream out the bearings to take a normal motor. Anyway, tends to go, it doesn't go too bad. There's a bit of a, don't know why it does that. Just there. I don't know what's causing it. Maybe I better can it, I don't know. I'll run it in for a while, see if it disappears. I've got the laminates ready and made together. You just follow the instructions here. There's a few laminates to make up. Very, very simple. Sometimes you feel like you need 3 hands. So I've just soldered in at 0.9mm brass rod so it doesn't keep falling out. Nothing else is soldered in at the moment. Well, I've prepped all the wheels. 6 wheels. I've put the balance weights on. They're super glued, not super glued. They put them with araldite. On the back, I put the 12BA crank pins in. What I did is, because they normally stick proud, I countersunk them with a drill, screwed them in. That's better. And then put a smear of araldite over the top. There's the chassis. So that's a 3/16 drill just to hold the motor in. I put a plate for the motor to sit on. You can see there's a tube there. That's a piece of brass tube. I'll thread some very thin fuse wire, wrap it around, and I've finished the internal valve gear. It's dummy valve gear, it doesn't work, but once the boiler's on it looks okay. So that's it, that's what I've done so far. Next step is to put the wheels on, get a working chassis, and then brake rigging and a few things like that. Paint it, pickups too, and then I'm home and hosed with the chassis.